Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Road to Liberty podcast on the Think Liberty Network. I am your host, Token. You guys know who I am. I don't need to introduce myself. But who you do need an introduction to is a guy that we had on the show several months ago. I think the last time we had him on the show was to debate Dr. Varner way back in the day. I think it was like last year sometime. But he's doing things in Kentucky that I thought were worth talking to him again for. So welcome back to the show, Mr. TJ Roberts. What is up, my man?
Not much, and thanks for having me on, Nathan. How you doing?
I'm doing great, and don't sell yourself short. Not much. There's a lot going on with you. So
yeah, fair.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's lay some groundwork down first. So you live in Kentucky right now, and several weeks ago, the governor of Kentucky, he decided to put the state under lockdown. Now, that's not unique right now. I think I'm in one of the only states that hasn't gone into lockdown. Lucky me. But what really caught my attention in regards to Kentucky is your governor actually ordered people not to leave the state. So that really caught my attention. And since then, a lot has gone down. So you live in Kentucky. You know more about it than I do. Why don't you lay it out for us? What exactly has been going on over there?
Okay, so there's a lot that's gone on. I think it was on March 16th it was sometime after that, actually, that the governor banned all restaurants and bars from operating beyond takeout, delivery, or drive-through, which that's pretty common. From there on March 26th, they had all mass gatherings. And one of the things that was unique about this was that it included mass gatherings that would include what some would consider to be essential services, which would be church services. In addition to that, we've seen the rise of all kinds of archaic policies that we have with it. We have a ban on chiropractors. We're the only state in the union that's gone that far. We have a ban on all elective medical procedures except abortion, mind you. And we also have seen the governor take upon himself the role of elected monarch in the context of he has stated that he will, quote, allow no legislator directly towards Savannah Maddox or lobbyist to disrupt what he is doing to the state, which this is ultimately best described as a full shutdown. It's ultimately something that is so drawn out, especially because when you look at Kentucky, there are two counties that are substantially urban. That's Fayette and that's Jefferson County. And if you take Fayette and Jefferson County out of the equation, there goes most of the COVID-19 cases in Kentucky. Most of them come from those two counties. In fact, the only one that exceeded 500 cases the last time I checked on Saturday was Jefferson County. Everywhere else, the impact of COVID-19 has 100% been the fault of the governor. It's crashed our economy, and it's ultimately made it to where we really don't see a sense of any point at which this is going to stop. We have the governor saying that this is going to go so far as to late June. So it's unfortunate.
This is something we've been seeing since this COVID-19 outbreak started, is governors and mayors becoming kings of their own private fiefs, just taking upon themselves powers that were never given to them, that they just assume that they have in a time of emergency. You know, and one can see the reason for, like, New York City, for example, being shut down. But just like Kentucky, most states have a few urban areas and mostly rural. I mean, it's the same way in Nebraska. You get out of Omaha and Lincoln, and there's not much else. You know, in like California, for example, was one of the first states to totally lock down. And even California, you get out of the major metro areas, there's a lot of rural areas there. Don't need to be shut down, but they are anyway. You go up north of you, Michigan has had some very draconian shutdown laws as well, going so far as to ban the sale of seeds and baby car seats. But something that caught my attention going on in Kentucky, over the Easter weekend, the governor actually threatened to go out to parking lots and take down license plate numbers for the purpose of fining churchgoers. So, to tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so on Easter Sunday, I've been a practicing Christian since I was around 14 years old. As is custom, I went to church on Easter. I typically go to church every Sunday, and whenever I heard that there was a church in Kentucky that was still holding in-person services, I decided that there is nothing on this earth that is going to stop me from going, especially with everything that's going on right now. When I got out of the service, mind you, before the service, one of Bashir's mobsters scattered nails across the driveway as if they couldn't
Wait,
see.
what?
Yeah, someone took a box of nails and scattered it across the driveway in hopes that it would destroy some tires of churchgoers. And apparently, they were unable to see the irony of using nails against Christians during the Holy Week.
Yeah, and I
But
thought the whole idea was they don't want you there. So why would they try to block everybody from leaving?
yeah, I don't know. I don't understand Karen logic. I don't speak the language. But what ended up happening with it is whenever I got done with the church service, I walked out and there was this notice indicating that my license plate has been recorded, that I have to quarantine for 2 weeks. And if I do not, I'm committing a Class A misdemeanor that carries 1 year in prison and a substantial fine, and that the health department is going to come to my house and force me into quarantine and going to force anyone living in my house into quarantine for 2 weeks as well, regardless of their employment status, regardless of what they have going on in their life. So we're going to specifically punish you for going to church. Mind you, there's no other recorded instance in Kentucky of the governor taking such measures against people violating social distancing.
Is there any law backing this up, or is he just taking it upon himself that he has the authority to do this?
So the law that he's citing is KRS Section 39A, which is what is the governor's powers during an emergency, which he's used that to say, I can do whatever I want, even though Section 5 of the Kentucky Bill of Rights is quite explicit, where it says that no human authority shall interfere with the right to worship. And our nation's First Amendment is even more clear as well. And of course, in terms of just selective enforcement here, to where there were fewer than 50 people inside of this church, and we got put into quarantine. However, hundreds of people can gather can gather at a Walmart, or they can gather at a Planned Parenthood center, and absolutely nothing will happen to them. They can do that with absolute impunity.
Yeah, it's very odd to see this kind of thing happening. I mean, even in a time of emergency, because you're right. It is unconstitutional to do this kind of thing. The First Amendment is very clear, right? The government shall not infringe upon your right to freedom of religion. It's very clear about this. And yet the governor of Kentucky is taking it upon himself to force you into quarantine for going to church. So you got this summons. It's telling you to stay in your home for the next 14 days. What was your reaction when you got that?
Well, there's a video going around in which I took not the original order, but a photocopy of the order, and I dumped an AR-15 magazine into said order.
You went all Rand Paul on it.
Just a little bit. I mean, my take on it is that it's a piece of paper, and the health department has not come to my house yet. And because of that, I have no intentions to self quarantine. If these jackboots want me to stay in my house, they can come to my house and tell me to sign these papers. But it's a little late for that anyway, because I am suing the governor on behalf of every churchgoer who has had their right to worship infringed upon. and we are going to win this case.
Okay, now how many other people who went were also ticketed like this? Like, was it just at your church? Was it at churches across the state? I mean, how many people had notices like this?
It was just my church. It was just Maryville Baptist Church. And one of the things that's fascinating about it is that Kentucky State Police they issued a statement on Easter stating that they responded to 33 incidents in which social distancing measures were violated, but they only gave that notice to one group. So there was a very deliberate targeting of religious institutions on Easter Sunday.
So I can't imagine that your church was the only one in the whole state that was holding services. What, any idea why it was so selective against that one church?
I think it was because that one church was public about it, that they were boldly saying, we are going to worship Jesus Christ no matter what man's law says, and we are going to continue to do what we are doing by simple virtue of the fact that this order means nothing. I'd imagine that there were other churches, but if I had to guess, they were all doing it speakeasy style, which, quite frankly, gives a little bit of hope in my heart there of the fact that Irish democracy is working here. I mean, for example, just this past Wednesday, a group called Kentucky is Open for Business hosted a protest at the Capitol, and when Kentucky State Police were asked about whether or not they took down the license plates and gave the quarantine order to them as well, Kentucky State Police's verbatim response was there was not enough pencils. And what they meant by that, what Nathan, was that there wasn't enough pencils to write down the license plate numbers for them to have the health department go to their houses. These people engaged in mass civil disobedience to such an extent that these so-called laws became 100% completely and totally unenforceable.
So basically, the church was targeted because they thumbed their nose at the governor and defied his authority, quote unquote authority.
Yes,
So
and I mean, you can see that Andy Bashir is a child in the way that he has handled this. Anyone who even marginally disagrees with him will be harassed by his mob of Lexington and Louisville liberals. You'll see that even after this Wednesday protest, on Thursday, they soundproofed the walls in which Andy Bashir gives his daily briefings. They coned off the lawn of the Kentucky State Capitol, and they even put armed police on the rooftops of the Capitol in order to terrorize and intimidate these protesters.
man,
So
that's just
that
absolutely insane.
if you can't handle pushback, you need to get out of office, because the fact of the matter is that Andy Bashir was taking parts in protests against the governor before him. He should have seen this coming. He should have known this was coming, and he should have emotionally prepared himself for the real adult responsibilities he will be taking on as governor, but he has failed to do that.
See, the petty tyranny of these governors and mayors across the entire country, it's something astonishing to see. I mean, we're libertarians. We're used to picking out individuals who are abusing their power and calling them out on it. But it's gotten to the point where it's not even possible to call out every single one of these petty tyrants because they're popping up all over the place. And the thing about it is, when it comes to these protests, a lot of people are giving the protesters a lot of flack for it. But I'm sitting here thinking, this is inevitable. You're telling people to stay in their homes. You're telling them they can't go outside. They can't go to see their families. They can't go to church. They can't go to their jobs. They just have to do this indefinitely. And there's no plan anywhere to lift these restrictions. And the longer you do that, the less inclined people are going to be to obey those orders. And when that happens, no government on earth is going to keep people from doing what they want. There's not enough cops. There's not enough National Guard. You can't hold 320 million people in their homes if they don't want to be there. And that's what we're starting to see now. It's
I agree
astonishing.
completely.
So tell us about this lawsuit. What's the case you're making?
So the case that we're making, my attorney would be much more capable to explain it. But ultimately, what the arguments being made are is that my First, Fifth, and 14th Amendment rights were violated. The First Amendment right to assembly, First Amendment right to the free expression of religion, and also my 14th Amendment rights in the context of the fact that there has been a brazen selective enforcement of this rule to where it's only targeting specific groups. My Fifth Amendment rights would come into due process as well. And one of the things that you mentioned before, this lawsuit does touch on the lawsuit that was done again. I does touch on a part of the travel ban, the ban on traveling out of state. Nathan, I've been working on a campaign in Ohio since January, and because of this travel ban, it's jeopardized the ability of us to actually go out and express our support or our opposition to political candidates outside of our home state. It's made it to where ultimately we're less capable of doing of doing what we do for a living, even if I'm doing it on a volunteer basis, like I've been doing after the primaries got pushed back. That made it to where 100% I couldn't go to Ohio in order to fight for that. In addition, we can see even on the ground, there's a certain congressman that is representing me in Congress right now who has a primary opponent who is wanting to use the military to take out Trump and is also an openly proud racist who called himself a racist fuckwit on Twitter. And we can't go out and knock on doors
Well,
for
that's
Thomas
something.
Massey to keep him in Congress. We can't go out and knock doors for him. We
Yeah,
can't. Go ahead.
I gotta say, Thomas Massey has the biggest set of balls in the entire Congress right now. It was absolutely hilarious to see. He like the only one like, hey, all you guys need to come back here and actually do an in-person vote on this thing and put your names to it. I'm like the absolute madman.
Did you
He's
see?
he's gonna hold this whole thing up. And, go ahead.
Did you see what Liz
Go
Cheney
ahead.
did in response to that?
Liz Cheney? No, I didn't.
She donated to Thomas Massey's primary opponent. She donated to this guy, and as soon as it came out, that Liz Cheney donated, it also came out that he has made more than a few very racist tweets, including one tweet in which he acknowledges the existence of this plan called the Kalergi Plan, which apparently is this team up between Japanese and Jewish people to eradicate the white race through race mixing. This is the guy that's trying to take out Thomas Massey.
Well, that's a conspiracy theory that's new to me. I got
Yep.
I got to read up on this. It sounds very, very deranged, but also interesting.
It's one of those QAnon conspiracy theories out there that gets spread around, and it's one of those things where it's like, if the establishment is looking for QAnon candidates in order to run against Thomas, they've really gotten desperate.
Oh, apparently, and this is the lady that Liz Cheney donated to. I gotta imagine she didn't realize what she was doing when she decided to do that. But come on now, you're gonna mess with Thomas Massey? Don't do that.
Oh, and it was the greatest thing because, like, as soon as these tweets resurfaced, Liz Cheney requested a refund. The Republican Jewish Coalition had originally endorsed Todd McMurtry, and they pulled their endorsement. And that's the thing, is that things seem a little dark right now. But I feel a little bit of confidence. I feel a little bit of optimism with this, of the fact that when this thing, it's not a matter of if, when this thing is exposed to have been an absolute hoax, meaning that, sure, this virus is real, but it was nowhere near as bad to the point that we needed to shut down all of society. If humanity has any hope, we are going to see an uprising against the establishment like we've never seen before.
I'm really hoping so. Honestly, I'm kind of afraid that we might go in the opposite direction. I mean, I'm sure you've seen it. Everybody tripping over themselves to be the most tyrannical dictator of their own private fiefs as they can be. Like every governor in this country, with a few exceptions, is going out of their way to try to be the most petty tyrant they possibly can, right? And I hope that ends up in some pushback when this is all said and done. But there are so many people out there who are not just going along with that out of fear, but applauding it, and decrying any attempt to reopen the economy. I'm not the biggest fan of Donald Trump there is, but I'm glad that there's a president in office right now who wants the economy to be open, and is not calling for indefinite lockdowns like a lot of these governors are.
And if you want my take on it, you'll see that a lot of the governors who are trying to reopen the civilization, a lot of them tend to be Republicans, and a lot of people who are trying to keep this shutdown going tend to be Democratic governors. And what that shows to me, in my opinion, I think it's a deliberate effort to destroy this economy in order to help the Democrats win in November. It's one of those things that, am I going to be voting for every Republican that's on my ballot? No, Mitch McConnell's on my ballot. I'm not going to vote for him. But the fact of the matter is, we can just think about this politically of why would it be that blue states are the ones with the most stringent shutdowns, while Kentucky's a red state. Bashir is a Democrat. We have to remember that. And that's why he hasn't allowed the state house, the state senate, or anyone else except for him to go into this, because he's the only elected Democrat statewide.
Yeah, see, I'm not a doctor, so I'm not gonna speak to the seriousness of this virus. Now, there are various different reports on how deadly this thing is. If you're under the age of 45, this thing is, the chances of dying of coronavirus are exceedingly slim. Now, if you're older, if you're in like the 60 to 80 age bracket, then yeah, you should be worried about it. But for people under the age of 45, slim chance, almost 0% chance of you dying. But again, I'm not a doctor, so I'm not going to speak to how deadly this thing is. But I will speak to how deadly government overreaction is. Government has killed far more people than any virus that you can conjure up. And it worries me the degree to which people are not only going along with this, but cheering it on. There's nothing more annoying than all the Karens running around chastising everybody who dares to go outside, or to have a walk, to see their parents, to go to church, right? Whatever happened to my body, my choice? Whatever happened to freedom to protest? Apparently, that's something that we can't allow anymore. But it's also very interesting to see. You see the real. You expose these governors for how weak they really are every time there's a protest that defies them. It happened in Kentucky, happened in Michigan. They don't actually have the power to do anything that they're proposing, right? They can't actually keep you inside if you don't want to stay there. And you know what? That's a good lesson for everybody to learn too. It's a good lesson for us to learn. It's a good lesson for these governors to learn. They can't actually enforce any of these laws, which is a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, and speaking of, you want to look into sort of a political side of the fatality of COVID-19, one thing to consider, and I heard this from Ryan McMakin of the Mises Institute. It was regarding the fact that because it's especially fatal for older populations, that's why it has led to such an incredible shutdown, because older people tend to have more money. They tend to have more willingness to donate to campaigns. And because of that, these members of the political class who are dependent upon donor dollars, whenever they are even hesitant to shut down society, like take Greg Abbott of Texas, for example. He didn't want to shut it down. Ron DeSantis of Florida especially didn't want to shut it down. But then whenever the donors started coming in and started putting the pressure on them, they realized that they value their chances of reelection more than they value your freedom. Because at the foundational level, politicians all respond to pleasure and pain.
Well, a lot of these politicians are also in those older age brackets as well, so they're probably getting a little nervous too. Democrats are definitely worrying about their presidential nominee right now. He's not the
I'd be
most
worried about
healthy
him
man in
with
the
or
world.
without coronavirus.
I mean, I know he's not exactly the healthiest man in the world as is. I'm sure this pandemic isn't really helping in that regard, but yeah,
I
you're
mean,
you're right.
it's it's one of those moments that I'm worried that he's like going to remember that Tide Pods actually do taste good, and that's the end of it. That's the end of the election.
Oh, geez. I guess it all depends on who he picks for his VP because, I mean, Joe Biden's not lasting 4 years in office if he manages to win.
Oh God, no.
It's
I,
all
I, I
about the VP pick.
yeah. I'm willing to bet it's going to be the cop. It's going to be the cop.
What, you think Kamala Harris is going to get it?
I think that's going to be the vice presidential nominee, and it's going to be the funniest thing ever.
Didn't she go after him during the debates for being a
Uh,
racist?
oh, of course she did. But of course, we're not going to talk about how she put an entire a generation of black men behind bars in California.
No, it'd be hilarious though, because I mean, after the beat down that Tulsi Gabbard gave her, I mean, it wouldn't be very difficult for somebody to take her to task on that. Not that
Oh
anyone in
God,
the
no.
media would, but I mean, what can you do? It's not like the media would actually cover that fairly, but I don't
Yeah,
know.
no.
I don't know what Kamala Harris exactly brings to you because it's not like Biden doesn't already have the minority vote, right? That's what gave him victory over Bernie. And she's from California, and Biden already has California. So I don't know how valuable that is. And the same goes with Elizabeth Warren. He's not. He already has Massachusetts, so I don't know how much he's going to get from that. What's that? Oh, I can't remember her name. She ran for, I think, mayor of Atlanta, or was it governor of Georgia?
Oh,
I can't
Governor
remember.
Stacey Abrams.
That's it. That's it. That
I'll
would
tell.
be that would be that would be my pick because
I'll tell
he.
it. That wouldn't surprise me either. But I'll tell you what, it's actually amazing. Have you heard like some of the horror stories coming out of her office?
No.
Like her staff members are seriously like referring to her as Governor Abrams because she is so delusional that she genuinely believes that she is the currently elected governor of Georgia.
She still doing that? Because I know she
Yes.
was she was pretending she got robbed and been acting like she was the actual governor. She's still on about that.
And apparently her staff is enabling it. So,
That
which
is insane.
I'm not a mental health professional, but that's something schizoid you shouldn't be taking as a joke, and you shouldn't be enabling.
I mean, that's part of the course for Democrats when they lose. I mean, we've all saw Hillary Clinton how she acted after losing. She still thinks that she was jobbed and that she should be president. I
How
mean,
was it that Donald Trump described it? She got schlonged.
something like that. I mean, the one saving grace if Joe Biden loses is that he's not even going to remember the election. So he's probably not going to go around pretending like he got robbed.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
mean that's true. I mean, we would hear him complaining about it for as long as he lives past the election. Yeah,
he'd probably have to read his complaints off a teleprompter because he couldn't remember what he's supposed to be saying. But I mean, that's about as much as you can expect from Joe Biden. I
yeah.
don't think the guy can string two sentences together anymore. Okay, so before we wrap this up, so you sued the governor of Kentucky. Where do you see this lawsuit going? How do you see it turning out?
Okay, so we have a hearing on Friday. That hearing is going to be about whether or not to give a preliminary injunction and or a temporary restraining order. Um, the judge that we pulled is pretty skeptical of the government, so I anticipate good results over this as well. Um, the unfortunate thing is, like, even if we win this case, I could genuinely see Bashir, as we've mentioned, he's a petty tyrant. I could see him appeal this to the Sixth Circuit Court, where depending on who we pull, and frankly, most of the judges in the Sixth Circuit Court are relatively on the civil libertarian side. I could see them saying that the right to worship still matters in an emergency as well. But I could genuinely see the governor's office appeal this all the way up to the Supreme Court,
Well, that would be something.
which wouldn't be smart. I mean, it would definitely be something. And I mean, fine, set the nationwide precedent that constitutional rights still matter in an emergency. I mean, please actually do that. I'm happy to do that. It's just I would much rather not spend my first semester in law school fighting a legal battle.
I don't know, man. If you're going to law school, that might be something in your favor. Like, hey, I got a case that went all the way to the Supreme Court. Want to hear about it?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of come across as a little bit of a jerk at that point, but you know.
I mean, maybe, but shit, how many lawyers go their whole careers without getting anywhere close to arguing in front of the Supreme Court? And here you are in law school, and you potentially could have a case go before it. I mean, that would be pretty amazing.
Oh, it would be really cool. Yeah, I mean, for something like that to happen, it would be pretty awesome. But it's always like the amount of time that you have to put into it. And in all seriousness, shout out to Chris Wiest, who's my attorney. The guy is an absolute legend. He's juggling this case along with a case that will be announced tomorrow, and also is the chairman of the Libertarian Party of Kentucky. So he's juggling all three of those things while doing whatever else he's doing in life. I mean, the guy deserves some credit. He's doing more to fight for liberty against this tyrannical government than most elected officials have done. And also shout out to Savannah Maddox in Kentucky, who has just taken so much heat from the Lexington and Louisville liberals for simply giving business owners an opportunity to sue the governor if they believe that they've been irreparably harmed. And finally, shout out to Thomas Massie, because my goodness, I've never seen more members of the political class angry at one person.
Oh, it's definitely beautiful. If you're a libertarian in government and you're not making everyone pissy at you, you're not doing it right. So shout out to Thomas Massie for that. So we're up against 30 minutes. Is there anything else you want to say before we say goodnight?
Sure. One of the things that one has to consider in this is like, what is it that makes both Christianity and liberty so beautiful? It's all predicated upon the notion of choice. You're not forced to make the right decisions when you're free. You're not forced to follow Jesus Christ as a Christian, right? It's something that you freely decide to do. And that's the thing that adds significance to the decisions you make whenever you're making them freely. If you want to be moral, you have to look to it in terms of, how am I going to act if I weren't forced to act? Because if you need the government to tell you how to be just, well, there's a problem, and it's there in itself.
Absolutely. All right. That's where we're going to end it right there. Thank you so much, TJ, for coming on the show. It was a great discussion, and I look forward to seeing where this case go and how it all turns out. Keep my fingers crossed for you. All right. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Remember, the website is think-liberty.com, and subscribe to Think Liberty to get this show, as well as the Token and Hobbs show and all the other excellent programs on the Think Liberty Network. All right, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow night at 9 p.m. for Token and Hobbs. See you then. Good night, everybody.